Welcome back with a smiling face. Links to previous episodes are given in the video description, so don't forget to like, subscribe and share the video. Shadows of the Moon. Episode 8. Chapter 79 to 86. Raven. 2 days had passed since the night of the rejection. I had spent it sitting next to Damon, refusing to leave him, because even if he was smiling, I knew he was hurting. We put a movie on, although I knew neither of us were watching it as we had soon fallen asleep on the sofa. I knew that it would take him time because he had held out hope. Somewhere along the line, I had given up, knowing that it wouldn't work, but he had held on. I hope somewhere in the future we can look back and smile at this entire situation. Someday, one day. Today was the day of Liam's trial. It terrified me to know that tonight he'll be punished. This was the future alpha of the pack, and although right now it felt like there was no hope, I was confident he would get there one day. As for the curse, it was clear Liam himself had to do something to end it, but what? Even I didn't know. All we knew was the answer lies within. Moreover, the killer was still out there. The pack was still working on it, but since Liam had been the one leading it, they were now set back. With him gone, they had to check over things he had already done, although from what Damon told me they were in contact with him to help where he could. He was even reviewing files in his cell. He had told me that Liam had ordered them to do a thorough check on the tracker and stealth wolves who had the ability to hide their heartbeats. As for no scent, sprays to hide them could easily be made or retrieved from the pack supplies, which were also checked, but none seemed to be unaccounted for. So either someone was making their own or getting them from somewhere else. Since I hadn't felt anyone creep up behind me the night my mom was killed, we felt that a tracker wolf would be higher up on the list of suspects with a chance of being the killer. I was in the hall now, seated at the front once again. Today I wore a high-neck top, not wanting all eyes on my mark. Everyone was seated just as they had that day, but this time the room was far more uneasy, and there were more pack members here than there had been on Dad's trial. The doors opened and Liam was brought in. His scent wafted into my nose and I closed my eyes, trying to control my emotions. I watched him walk through the center. Unlike Dad who had 2 guards holding him, Liam led the way. Despite him being STR/PPED of rank, he was clearly still an alpha. His eyes were trained ahead and he took the seat that was awaiting him. The guards cuffed him to the chair just as Dad had been, before stepping away. Uncle L stood up, his face emotionless, a frown furrowing his brow. I felt dreadful that indirectly because of mine and Liam's situation, they were going through this. No, because of this stupid curse too. As you all know, we are here today to hold Liam Westwood accountable for the crimes he has committed. One that deserves capital punishment, for marking Raven Jacobs against her will and almost killing her in the process. Uncle L's eyes Liam flashed dark cobalt and my gaze shifted to the room remained quiet. I knew everyone was unsure of what to make of it. My heart was squeezing as I looked at him. He simply nodded slowly, his face emotionless despite his eyes clouded with emotions. What were we? Liam, do you have anything to say? Uncle L asked. Auntie Red was frowning, the sadness in her eyes clear. Liam raised his eyes, staring ahead with those cerulean orbs of his, full of emotion. I allowed my anger to get the better of me, and in the process, committed a terrible crime. I don't deserve any leniency and I don't think any punishment can make up for what I did. He said clearly. Uncle L nodded. I've thought long and hard. Considering you are an alpha, you are meant to be an example to this pack. An alpha is meant to be what he wants his people to be, a role model for the youth of his pack. If the alpha commits a crime, it is far worse, with this title comes great responsibility, one we must always uphold. As your alpha, I sentence you to 500 lashes with silver in public." My eyes flew open in shock. 500? That was worse than Dad's. And in public? Why humiliate him? I looked at Uncle L, not missing the way his fist trembled by his side, or the way Auntie Red gripped his arm. This was hurting them too. Yet they were doing the right thing for the pack. A whisper of shock went through the room, and from the snippets I could hear, I knew people were shocked that the Alpha was subjecting his own son to something like this. But Alpha Elijah was always known for his fairness and equality. "You will remain under house arrest at our home for the next 6 months. As for becoming Alpha, if the title is meant to be yours, then it shall be, if and when the pack deems you are worthy of it." Raven. "Do you want to add anything?" "Yes," I said, standing up. For my happiness and what I felt was right, "I don't like the punishment," I said. "It's befitting," Liam said, now glancing at me. My heart skipped a beat and I shook my head. No, it wasn't. It wasn't just an external factor. Yes, marking someone against their will was bad, but was everyone forgetting the curse too? Yes, he got angry, but the darkness was still there. Let him at least walk around the pack and carry on as usual. The killer is still out there and Liam is needed on that case. Yes, he doesn't need to have his alpha title, but the pack needs him, rather than keeping him inside where he can't be of any use," I said, looking at Uncle L. He frowned, pondering over my words. "Very well, he will be allowed to take his place amongst the pack. However, due to his temper, he will be on Wolfsbane until it's under control. He will, however, reside in the Alpha home." Uncle L continued, "I knew he meant the curse. That was better, Liam needed support and I knew they said the Alpha's home, so he wouldn't be completely alone. This was still better, but he needed more than just 2 people there for him. If that the lashes, I want the punishment lessened," I said quietly, my heart thumping. I wasn't stupid, I wasn't going to let my emotions take over completely, but I didn't like this. "I can't do that," Uncle L said quietly. "I'm bending the rules. I know what he did was wrong. I know that I could have died. I also know of every factor that contributed to it. Mistakes were made, and although it will take me time, I don't hate him. I'm angry at what happened, hurt too, but as the one who it happened to, I also have a right to this. This punishment won't take away what I did, but I'll feel a little better," Liam said quietly. "Liam, don't do this," I said through the link. "I ed up big time, Raven, I can't ever forgive myself." "You want to know how you can make up for this?" I asked, my heart pounding in rhythm with his as we stared at each other from 5 meters apart. "There's nothing that can change the past. I know, but if you want to do something for me, then do something that will actually make me happy," I said. I knew people could tell we were mind-linking. "Anything," he said quietly. "Fight this curse, fix the bonds you have destroyed, and let's make things right, Liam. I love you, but by giving up and just accepting things, that's not the way to go. I want to see the true Liam shine through. I believe only then can we get rid of this darkness. Let's do this together." Our eyes were locked. I wish he'd understand. His brows furrowed and I knew he was thinking about what I said. "I understand and I will do all that, but, for me, let me have this punishment," he said, his eyes full of pain as he looked back up at me. "Goddess!" My heart clenched and I realized he needed this too. The people need to see this too. What I did was messed up. Not only did I mark you, PPD your throat out. I looked down before nodding and slowly sat down. If that's decided. Tonight at 7 p.m., Liam Westwood will get his lashings. Uncle L said before dismissing the trial. I sighed heavily as everyone began leaving. Auntie Red came over to me, wrapping her arms around me tightly. He is a Westwood, he has the strength to take his punishment. She said softly. I nodded, wrapping my arms around her tightly. I know, but it didn't mean I liked it. It wasn't only going to be hard for me, but for his family too. I watched him being taken away, staring at this back, my heart clenching in pain. 7 o'clock couldn't have come sooner, my nerves were a mess. I was advised to not go see him receive his punishment, but I wasn't able to avoid it. The bond wasn't completed because, as I was a werewolf as well, his mark alone didn't complete it. I would need to mark him too to complete our bond. Which meant I wouldn't be able to feel the pain of his lashings, only his emotions and a sense of unease, but that was already happening. I was a restless mess with each passing moment. I entered the lower hall, which I hadn't really been in before. I knew Dad's lashing had occurred in the cells. I looked around. It was like one of those illegal underground arenas, cold, gloomy, and with that deep sense of foreboding. Damon was nodding at something Uncle Eli was saying, his gloved hand around a silver chain. Liam wasn't here yet. Uncle L patted his shoulder before giving me a nod and walking away. Auntie Red wasn't here, but as Alpha, Uncle L had to be here. I walked over to Damon, knowing that this wasn't easy for him too. Hey! I said. He looked up, surprised to see me before placing the whip down. I hugged him tightly and he hugged me back. Hey, why did you come? He asked quietly. Moral support? I actually have no idea. I need to be here. I whispered. He frowned and nodded. And how are you feeling? I looked around. It was so dark and dreary in here. I noticed Robin, Zach, Taylor, and even Owen were here. That bastard. Okay, I guess. He replied quietly. No, he wasn't. You got this. I said, just don't think. He nodded just as Liam's familiar scent hit my nose. I turned to see him being taken to the center, my stomach twisting as they hooked his wrists to the chains that dangled from the ceiling. Chains that would keep him upright even when his body could no longer take it. The sound of heels echoing on the stone floor made me turn and I saw Auntie Red enter. She looked around, her heart thudding as she broke into a quick run, rushing over to Liam who was already chained up. Mom? He said, sounding surprised. I could only see his chiseled back towards me as his shirt had now been removed. Liam? She said, cupping his face as she pressed her forehead to his. I'm fine. This is nothing. He said quietly. Everyone fell silent and I knew this was hard for Auntie Red. She had been through so much and what happened had brought back her own traumatic experience. They switched to mind link. Auntie Red nodded and placed a kiss on his forehead, although he had to bend his head for her to reach. She stepped back, taking a deep breath, and walked over to me. I smiled gently, as she came over and hugged me tightly. I'd stay. But I can't see this, I'm sorry. She whispered. I nodded, I understood. She turned and walked away, casting a final glance at Liam and Uncle L before she did. Damon walked forward, and any murmurs that occurred died down. My heart was thumping with every step Damon took. His hand twisted around the whip. Uncle L sat down next to me. Why are you here? I wanted to be. People only come when they want the victim to be punished. You won't be able to do anything, he said quietly, making my heart thud. I dared not look at him. I wanted to, I mumbled. I knew deep down I was scared of what was happening and I wanted to make sure things didn't go too far, but I looked at the man next to me, not Uncle L but the alpha of this pack, an alpha who needed to uphold the laws. He didn't say anything. Holding out his hand, I looked down at it. Placing my own in his, he gave it a gentle squeeze as we looked ahead. Chapter 80. Raven. Damon raised the whip. I flinched when it struck Liam's back. He didn't even move, another followed, each lash made my heart squeeze. For his mistake. It's for his mistake. I had to tell myself that, my heart thundering as each lash struck him, slicing through his skin and letting blood drip to the ground. Not once did he even flinch, despite his breathing becoming harder. But each lash was biting into me, the pain of watching him face this. 30. Raven. Uncle L said and I realized I was shaking. My heart was beating far too fast. Step outside. No. I said as I saw Taylor coming over. No doubt Uncle L had mind-linked him. I'm staying. I stared at Liam as Damon continued. The emotionless mask on Damon's face was gone, pain and conflict on his face too as he frowned deeply, continuing the punishment. That's enough now, I said suddenly, flinching as the silver cut into Liam's back was a mess of lashes, torn skin, and blood. Raven. I told you, you can't change this. Uncle L said softly. No, I can, because he marked me, I have the right to. I said, standing up. I saw Damon glance towards us but he continued his dealing. Each lash felt like I was the one being cut open. My heart was screaming in pain. The fear and anguish inside of me were messing me up. He made a terrifying mistake, and one that would take time to heal, but let him have the chance to redeem himself. Not do something so painful like this. Take her outside. Uncle L said quietly to Taylor and Zach, your emotions are clouding your judgment, Raven. No. I love him. Taylor wrapped his arm around my shoulders, leading me firmly towards the exit. No. I stared at Liam's mutilated back, his shoulders heaving, his head hanging, yet not once did a sound escape him. I'm fine, Raven. Please leave. His voice came through the link. No matter how much he tried to hide it, I could hear it. My eyes stung with tears as I shook my head at his back. How can I turn my back on him right now? The darkness inside of him was feeding on all negative emotions. Fear, loneliness, and regret were part of that. This was not the right way. 50. Damon said, breathing hard as he lashed him again. I couldn't breathe. My heart was ringing in my ear. The smell of blood. I spun around in a flash, but Zach was ready. His arm was wrapped around my waist as I struggled against him. Stop it! I cried out, my heart was breaking as if someone was ripping it apart inch by inch. Raven, come on. It's compulsory. Zach said quietly. Please stop it. If this is for marking me, I was going to let him mark me anyway. I sobbed, not caring for once that I was crying out in the open. Damon hesitated, turning to me. Our eyes met and I realized his eyes glistened with unshed tears. This was hurting him too. That doesn't make the way he did things right. Zach said quietly. I know. And I won't forgive him easily, but brutally whipping him like this, I don't like it. Two wrongs do not make a right. I shouted. Alpha Elijah. As the victim, I demand that you let him go. That cannot be done. Take her away. Uncle L said, his eyes flashing. Liam. I'm fine, love, please go. Let go of me. I shouted as Zack carried me out of the hall and into the corridor. No. I will do what I feel is right. Twisting in his hold, I rammed my elbow in his face. Sorry, Taylor. His grip loosened as he grunted in pain. I took the chance to knock him back and ran back inside. I said stop it. I cried out, running onto the stage and wrapping my arms around Liam from behind. The strong sparks of the bond rushed through me as I tried to shield his back, but I didn't even cover half of it. Please stop it, this is only hurting me more. I whispered in the room that was now completely silent. This isn't easy for anyone. Uncle L said softly. But a punishment is he's had over 50 lashes. Please stop. I shouted. The pain in my CH3ST was growing, my eyes blazing as I stared at the alpha. Raven, I'm fine. Liam said, his voice was hoarse despite trying to sound as normal as possible. I'm not okay with this. I said, slowly letting go of him, flinching at how deep the wounds on his back were. Please. I love him. Please stop this. I joined my hands together in front of my face, unable to stop the tears that streamed down my cheeks as I looked at Uncle L. Please. I beg you. This is causing me more pain than good. My voice broke as I stared up at our alpha. He stood there, the conflict clear on his face. We make mistakes in life, and some may be unforgivable, but this is between Liam and I, and we will work on them. We also know he has no memory of what he did, he wasn't just fueled by rage alone. I said quietly, the pain in my CH3ST was overpowering everything. Give him one chance to redeem himself. If he messes up again, then you can punish him. Please. My hands were shaking as I pressed my joint fingers to my L.P.S., closing my eyes as sobs racked my body. I heard the clang of the whip hitting the floor, opening my eyes to see Damon had dropped it. He pulled me into his arms, stroking my back. I agree with her, Alpha. I think it's enough. He said quietly. Uncle L sighed heavily. Alpha. I'm with Raven and Damon. Liam regrets his actions and he will prove his worth. Zack said, quietly wiping blood from his nose. A murmur of agreement passed through the people watching, and I hoped Liam saw that we were not giving up on him. We would defeat the darkness, together. Liam let him down. Her voice made my heart clench, her words ringing in my head. I don't get how she could even consider forgiving me at a time when I couldn't forgive myself. I had almost killed her. I was unlocked and I staggered, holding my stance. I turned to look at her. Tears streamed down her beautiful face as Damon embraced her. How many times would I make her cry? Our eyes met and she pulled out of Damon's hold as she looked at me, stepping closer. There were still bridges to build between us. She should have let me receive my punishment. Get him cleaned up and then I expect him at my place after being given a dose of wolfsbane. Dad said, his eyes meeting mine. I looked away, knowing I had disappointed him. I had never wanted to ever cause him pain, but I had. I turned to Damon, I knew it hadn't been easy on him. The first few lashes had held anger in them, but after that, each one had been hard for him too. Raven's words from earlier were still clear in my mind. Fix the bonds I had destroyed. For her and for me. I had a lot of work to do, with myself, Raven, Damon, Mom. My stomach twisted and I felt sick. I knew what her father had done, and unknowingly, I had done the same thing. I could only imagine what she was going through. Everyone was leaving and I was led into a side room by Zack, who was supporting a bruised nose. I had a feeling it was courtesy of Raven. "I'm sorry, Taylor," Raven was saying as Damon pushed me down onto the bed. I glanced up at her as she pouted at Taylor, who looked as sad as Raven. "I won't hit him again," Raven pleaded quietly. "Sorry, Zack." I raised an eyebrow, glancing at Zack, who simply nodded. "It's understandable, but don't the nose up next time," he said. "There won't be a next time," Raven promised. "Do you forgive me, Taylor? Since it was for your mate," he said, giving her a hug. If I wasn't in so much pain, I would have probably found their exchange a little amusing. There was a lot Raven did that was just cute, a cuteness I didn't deserve to even witness. I didn't deserve having her in my life. I looked at my beta and delta, not mine anymore, but they were still here. "Arms up," Damon said. I held back the hiss of pain as he splashed something on my back. "That burns," I muttered, making Raven turn to him. Her face became serious. She came over. Her scent enveloped my senses, and as much as I wish I could just wrap her up in my arms forever, I no longer held hopes for that. I didn't deserve her. "I'll do it," she said, taking the bandage from Damon, who nodded. We were halfway done, her fingers often grazing my skin, sending off a rush of pleasure as she wrapped the bandage around me firmly when Damon swore, staring at Zack. "What is it?" Raven asked, her heart thumping. "There's been another death," Damon said, frowning. "The body was discovered 10 minutes ago." "One," I said. "Who is it?" Raven asked with worry in her eyes. "One of the elder wolves, Arnold," Zack muttered. The room fell silent as the five of us stared at one another. This needed to end. We have to do something. Maybe we need to search everyone's houses. The teeth and eyeballs have got to be stored somewhere, Raven said, reaching up and brushing my hair out of my eyes. Our eyes met and my gaze dipped to her neck, my ch3 squeezing as I looked at it, half hidden. She moved away, a flash of pain in her eyes before she turned away. "I agree. But isn't that what Liam kind of wanted? How do we do that without making the pack restless?" Zack asked. We all fell into thought. How do we get the pack homes empty? Taylor snapped his fingers. "We party." The rest of us frowned at the question, but Raven gasped as if understanding. "A party for the entire pack? So the homes are empty?" she asked. Taylor nodded, a small smile on his lips. "Exactly, the Alpha can say it's just due to everything going on, a party for everyone would be good. I mean, I'd say his birthday would be ideal, but we can't delay this until then. When everyone is at the party, those at the top of our list of suspects, well, we search," he explained. "You're pretty smart," Zack said, wrapping his arms around Taylor's neck, pulling him against him, and kissing his forehead. "I sure missed a lot." "You two together?" I asked. "Mates actually," Zack said before looking away. I ed up. "So, it took a little time. We all mess up at times. We just got to work on it," Taylor said, looking at Zack and then at me. I nodded. "Yeah. Well then, I think it's time we started planning this party," Damon said, smacking his hands together. "Can I help search?" I asked quietly. "Sure," Damon said. "We can use whatever help we can get. This killer had been on the loose for far too long." Chapter 81 Raven. It was the following day. Damon and I had just arrived at the Westwoods home and were seated in the lounge. I wasn't sure how to feel knowing Liam was going to be there. I had gotten all emotional when he was in pain, but now I felt a little embarrassed about my outburst. The fact that I had literally shouted at Uncle El. I needed to apologize for that too. I looked at Damon, who was raising his eyebrows questioningly at me. I shouted at the alpha. I whispered. He raised an eyebrow. You've teased and played pranks on him all your life. Are you scared now? He joked quietly as he stroked his mother's hair. She was fast asleep on the sofa when we entered, and neither of us wanted to disturb her. I know, but I shouted at him when I knew it wasn't easy for him. I whispered back. Well, gorgeous, it's too late to regret it. He said. Our eyes met, both of us realizing what he had called me, before he gave a small smile. I can still call you that, right? I nodded. We hadn't told anyone about our rejection, and I knew Damon probably felt the emptiness more than I did. Uncle El and Auntie Red entered alone, making me wonder where Liam was. How were his wounds? Yesterday, when we were leaving the side room, I had seen the pain on his face as he stood up, even if he was trying not to let it show. To what do we owe the pleasure? Uncle El said. I saw him exchange looks with Damon and frown. Why did it feel like I was missing something? Well, we had a request. Damon said. And I wanted to apologize for being rude yesterday. I mumbled. Uncle El raised an eyebrow. I was not proud of what you did, but I understood it. We all do shit for our mates. I remember Elijah doing the same for me. He stood up to his father for me. Auntie Red said softly. She smiled, but I could tell she was upset. What's your request? Uncle El asked Damon. Damon and I exchanged looks before he began relaying the party idea and plan forward. I can't deny that we do need to do something, he said, running his fingers through his hair. But this goes against my rules. If we're caught, I'll take it on me. Damon said, quietly. I think we need to agree, Elijah, although even I'm not happy with this. Auntie Red said, her face was pale. I felt awful knowing she was going through a lot because of what happened between Liam and I. Uncle El gave a nod, exhaling sharply. Fine, I'll keep everyone at the party, making sure no one leaves. That will give you all a bit of time. Perfect. Thank you. I said. How's Liam been? I frowned hearing Damon's heart skip a beat and the way Uncle El's jaw ticked. What was it? He's resting. Auntie Red said quietly. Uncle El pulled her into his arms, kissing her neck softly. Can I see him? I asked, feeling like something wasn't right. He's asleep, Raven. Auntie Red replied, giving me a small smile that didn't mask the pain in her eyes. Yeah, very suspicious. They were hiding something from me. I sat for a while longer. Auntie Monica woke up, so I knew Damon would be stopping for longer, so I excused myself. I left the Alpha's home through the front door, but rather than return home, I walked around the house looking for a way in. I was glad the guards were posted a little away, protecting the house from anyone approaching, yet not close enough that I would be spotted climbing through a window. Noticing an open bathroom window on the second floor, I climbed up, swinging myself silently inside. If I said I wanted to see him, I was going to see him. Slowly taking my boots off so I made no sound, I silently made my way through to the hall and down towards Liam's room. Liam? No answer. Then again, he was on Wolfsbane, so maybe he won't hear me. I frowned. I turned the door handle, stepping inside before I froze in my tracks. The smell of blood and Liam's scent mixed, hitting me hard. My eyes fell on the bed where Liam lay on his stomach, his eyes closed, his breathing heavy, but it was his bare back that filled me with horror. From his neck down to the band of his sweatpants, his back was a mess of deep, ruthless gashes. Wounds that hadn't been there last night, far more than what was on his back when I had bandaged him up. What? My heart thundered, my eyes flashing as I stepped into his room, my boots slipping from my grasp onto the carpeted floor as I rushed to the bed shaking. 1,000 thoughts ran through my mind. Did his dad make him take the rest of the punishment? Did Liam himself ask for it? How dare they go behind my back? I said it was enough. Brushing away my tears of frustration, I covered my mouth. The condition of his back was sickening. They were far too deep. His skin was torn up so horrifically. A thin layer of some sort of balm was covering his back, but he wasn't healing. I dropped to my knees by his bed, looking at his face. I shook my head, I knew the answer. He asked for his punishment to be completed because he felt guilty. I placed a hand on his cheek, the sparks rushing through me as his thick lashes fluttered, but his eyes didn't open. I knew that he'd always remember what he did. Even in years to come. I leaned over and placed a gentle kiss on his forehead. When will we stop hurting? Why was he going to torture himself like this? Hearing the sound of footsteps, I stood up quickly, slipping my boots on. I went to his window, opening it and climbing onto the ledge. Before I jumped down, I cast a final look back at the man I loved. I couldn't do anything for him right now. Maybe time will heal all. I'm sorry. The following day, I had mind-linked Liam but had reached a blank again. Remembering his injuries, I wish they had at least let him heal first. I had then texted him instead, but he had kept the conversation short, saying he's fine. I promised myself next time I saw him, I would ask him about those injuries. It was now 2 nights later, and I had been unable to see Liam. I was put to work helping with the party, so I didn't get the time. I knew he was avoiding me, so I didn't push it. Tonight, he'd have to face me. Uncle L had made it clear we were having a party and that everyone is to join, from the Omegas to the Warriors. He had made it clear no one was to leave the area whilst the party was ongoing for everyone's safety. The only ones who wouldn't be attending were the essential patrol, which would change halfway through the party. As expected, many pack members were looking forward to an evening of relaxing and not having to be confined to their homes thanks to the curfew. I had gotten ready too, making sure I looked good. For me, sometimes putting a little effort in made me feel better about myself. I had put on a lace bodysuit and cropped leather *NTS, a black belt with a gold buckle strapped around my waist. I added several delicate gold necklaces, bracelets, and rings. My ears, as usual, had studs in all my piercings. I left it, not wanting to look overly done. My hair was up in a messy bun. I was wearing 6-inch black heels and my makeup was flawless. I had added black glitter to my usual smoky eye and done a full face. Finishing off with matte deep wine-colored L.P.'s tick and nails of the same color. The party was in full swing. The place was lit up with lanterns hanging from the branches and fairy lights strung around. The long tables were to the left, holding lanterns, dishes, and some clusters of flowers that were placed across them. To the right were some chairs, drinks were being served and were set up behind there. There was a huge dessert table full of mouth-watering goodies, and the pups were all running around. At the back were the huge pots and boxes with the food, which were now being put on platters ready to be served. Music was blaring loudly and the mood was surprisingly light. I noticed how there were guards posted every 2 meters, no one would be able to leave without being noticed. I glanced around, trying to find the boys. I was not able to see any of them. Well, we were all to make an appearance first. My eyes went to the 2 large chocolate fountains that seemed to be calling to me. Oh chocolate! I whispered, weaving my way through the crowds towards it. Cake pops! I reached the table, fitting in nicely with the young boys who were helping themselves to dessert. Shouldn't you wait until after your main meal first? I asked. Same to you, midget. One of them frowned at me as I pushed to the front. I'm sure they were like 9 or 10, but some were already taller than me. Thank you, goddess, for 6-inch heels. Hey, I'm double your age. Now behave. I said, stealing a plate and quickly piling it with 3 cake pops, a stick that I slid on some brownies, marshmallows, and strawberries, before dunking it into the melted chocolate. The boys complained, but I ignored them. You can't come between me and chocolate. I was about to turn away, paused, and picked up a small cheesecake shot before hurrying away, leaving a disapproving group of boys behind. Now, where to eat this before we had to leave? I spotted a tree not too far off and walked over, biting into my chocolate-covered brownie and sliding off the stick, as I enjoyed it. So yummy! I picked up one of the cake pops and shoved it fully into my mouth. Here you are, I told Damon you'd be near the dessert table. Liam's husky voice carned, making me freeze, my mouth full of chocolate and the sense of déjà vu of the night we found out we were mates returning to me. I slowly turned and looked at him, remembering his mutilated back. My heart thundered as I looked him over. Black jeans, boots, and a white collarless button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up and a few buttons open. My stomach fluttered and I stared into his cerulean eyes. Noticing his hair was perfectly styled. I was glad he felt better, or at least looked better. Not missing how his eyes raked over my body, his eyes flashing their beautiful magnetic deep blue as he swallowed hard. His thudding heart made my core throb, and if the bond was strong before, it was far stronger now. My body was craving him, yet when his gaze fell on my neck and the familiar flash of guilt filled his eyes, reality came crashing down. Well, I saw no one, I said through the link, only to reach a blank wall. Oh yeah, Wolfsbane. I quickly tried to swallow the cake in my mouth. Take your time, little Miss Glutton. I frowned, as he reached over, taking a cake pop from my plate before I moved my plate out of his reach. I finally managed to swallow my mouth full down and eat my P.S. That's my cake pop, I fought a pack of boys to get there first. I complained, picking up the last cake pop before he stole it. Yeah, a bunch of pups, I saw. He said, his gaze flickering to my P.S. He stepped closer, raising his finger slowly and placing 2 fingers under my chin, sending off a rush of sparks that took my breath away. He brushed his thumb along the corner of my bottom P. My ch3st heaved, my heart pounding as he slowly moved back, slipping his thumb into his mouth and ing off the fleck of chocolate. Our gaze met, my core throbbed and I felt blank. Shall we go? He asked softly. Go. It took me a moment to realize what he meant. I knew that we're paired due to Liam being on Wolfsbane, meaning he didn't have the pack link. I nodded, not missing the few glances we received. Drama queen. If you wanted him, why make him go through the punishment? One of the younger females said through the link, jealousy clear in her eyes as I glanced at her. I frowned, feeling a sting of pain. I didn't even know her by name, but obviously, there would be people hating me for what happened. Ignoring them, I followed Liam, my plate still in my hand. I could make out the outline of bandages faintly through his shirt. I looked down, sighing deeply. Chapter 82. Raven. We walked away from the commotion of the party, the music fading a little, yet it was still loud enough to hear. He slowed down, falling into step beside me as I quickly ate my dessert. "So, we get the pack house," he said quietly, sliding his hand out of his pocket and holding out the piece of paper which contained a list of door numbers. "The ones marked off are those members fully in the clear." I nodded, taking the paper from him. "We had a lot of rooms to search. Shall we split when we get there? There's a lot of rooms to cover. Maybe one of us can start from the bottom and the other from the top, although I doubt it would be an omega," I said. Liam shook his head. "No one gets a pass. Everyone is capable. In fact, omegas have access to a lot of places with ease," he said quietly as we entered the pack house, and he slid out a bunch of keys. The extra keys. Keys that I knew were not meant to be used. "Where are those usually kept?" I asked quietly, although we were alone in the very silent pack house. "Dad's house, in a safe. So, no one could have accessed them," I said, closing the front door behind us as we headed up the stairs. "Let's do a room at a time, it'll be faster," Liam said. "As for the keys, imprints can be made with ease. I was telling Damon about the picture you got," I said. I knew he didn't know about the rejection and I wasn't planning on telling him. He frowned. I saw the flash of guilt on his face as he took out 2 anti-scent sprays, handing me one. Quickly, we sprayed them over ourselves before Liam tried to find the correct key. "Well, I got pictures of him and Robin and he got pictures of us too," I said quietly as he unlocked the first door and we stepped inside. He looked at me sharply. "What? When?" "I got mine when I moved to the pack house. I think I ordered some stuff for my room and there was a thin flat package. And you never thought to mention that." "It was of Damon, I didn't want to make matters worse." He sighed. "I get it," he said as we both walked to opposite sides of the rooms and began searching. "I know, I messed up. Not speaking up was the issue from the start. Someone who can walk around with ease." "Mine was posted under the door when I stepped out of the bathroom that day," he said quietly. "Strange. Yeah, so it's possible it's someone with ease of access to the pack house." "Yeah, like someone who lives here," he said. "Mind link the others and tell them to come help out here?" "I don't know, I feel the killers at this pack house." I frowned, quickly linking the others to come as I removed the bottom drawer, checking behind it, whilst Liam rolled the rug back, checking the floorboards. With Wolfsbane in his system, he was far weaker than normal. "How's the darkness?" I asked quietly. He tensed, before glancing at me. "It's there, growing stronger, but I'm trying not to let it get to me," he said quietly. "Great," I said, softly. 15 minutes later, we moved to the next room, but I don't think a 3-hour party was going to give us enough to me. We wouldn't even cover 1 floor at this rate. The other 3 had come. Damon was checking the Omega's rooms on the bottom floor at the back of the pack house. Zach and Taylor had taken the top floor. We moved on to the next room, not talking much as we worked fast. "There's less time, isn't there?" Liam muttered, unlocking the door to Owen's room. I wrinkled my nose, hit with the sweaty smell of male musk and unwashed gym wear. "Yeah, let's do what we can, I guess." "Goddess, it stinks." I went over to the drawer and looked around. His room was such a mess, I'm sure even if we are, pped it apart, he wouldn't notice. I kicked a discarded shirt to the side as I began opening the drawers, nothing. I sighed as I watched Liam move the bed slightly. It was a low wooden bed that was stuffed with boxes underneath. I frowned when I saw the slight pink patch on his shirt, realizing it was blood. Liam, you're straining your injuries, I said, rushing over. I couldn't smell the blood, but I knew that was due to the anti-scent spray. I'm fine. You're not. Care to explain why your back was pped apart again 2 days ago? I have no idea what you're talking about. Liam, I said, frustrated, forcing him back by his shoulder. He looked up at me from where he was crouching. Don't lie to me. He looked down. It's nothing. Liam, did you ask for your punishment to be completed? It isn't. What? I asked, sitting on the bed trying to get better eye contact with him. Liam, what do you mean? It doesn't matter, I'm just saying I didn't get my full lashings. I haven't. Yet you want them? I asked. My stomach clenched and I felt sick. As I tried to make sense of what he was saying, suddenly the room felt very small. Raven, I need this for me. I can't be let off lightly, I'm fine. Dad's even broken it down. It's not like I'm getting 500 at once. He said, his hands closing around my upper arms. The sparks of the bond made my heart calm a little, but it wasn't enough. I told them to stop, meaning to forget about it. I know, but this isn't that easy, Raven. Why don't you get it? I can't live with myself knowing what I did, please. He said quietly, cupping my face. My chest was heaving as I tried to calm down. I told you how to make it up to me. I said softly. And I will, but let me do this for me too. I need it, love. He said quietly, looking down. His eyes flashed before they snapped back up to mine. I tried to understand what he needed, to make sense of it. In the end, I nodded. If this was what he wanted. Thanks for understanding. You look beautiful, by the way, he said quietly. Thanks, I whispered, our eyes locked, his cerulean ones meeting my unique ones. But the moment didn't last long when he pulled away and began moving around the boxes and rubbish that littered the ground. He's a disgusting DK. Liam growled in disgust. My eyes fell on some PN magazines that looked pretty old. I scrunched my nose as I stood up and got down on my knees to look under the bed at the back. I'll get the rest of the stuff out. You need to be careful with your back. He nodded, opening another box as I took out the rest of the stuff from under his bed. I sighed, leaving Liam with the boxes as I went to look in his wardrobe. I had just opened it when Liam swore. I turned sharply, only to see him staring down at a dark green-colored large pouch. What is it? I asked. He didn't respond, simply spilling the contents to the ground. My eyes widened as I stared at a spoon, a thin sharp knife, pliers, and a jar of what appeared to be very clearly human teeth. I looked at Liam in shock as our eyes met, his blazing a brilliant magnetic blue. He's dead. He growled. Chapter 83. Raven. An hour had passed. Owen had been captured and tossed into the cells. Uncle L was making sure everyone was getting home safely. Right now, we hadn't told anyone we had caught the killer because he hadn't admitted to it, although there were rumors going around that someone had been taken in. My mind flashed to what happened with Liam not long after we had made the discovery and Owen had brought to the cells, my heart thudding at the memory. A short while ago Liam. I'm going to kill him. His eyes blazed, watched the black begin to creep over the whites of his eyes. He had given Owen a few punches for talking back, but he was getting angrier thanks to Owen not knowing when to shut up. Liam, calm down, I said quietly, approaching him. The bond was stronger now, please let it help. Raven, move. Damon's panicked voice came through the mind link. Don't come closer. Trust me, I said quietly through the link. Raven, I swear I'm not going. Damon, I am begging you, please let me do this. I knew what I was doing. Or I hoped I did. If Liam truly was remorseful, he'll fight it. I was going on complete blind faith here, but I wasn't going to give up on him. I gave Damon a small smile, knowing that it was hardest for him, when he had witnessed what had happened to me. I cupped his face, watching his chest heaving, his claws coming out. Fight it. Let's do this calmly, I whispered soothingly. His hands went to my waist, and I knew how panicked the men behind me were. Right now, I was in the grips of Dark Liam, and if he wanted, he could rip me to shreds for standing in his way. Raven. His eyes flickered, his grip tight, yet I could see the fear make them widen and his cerulean orbs return as he suddenly let go of me, staggering back as if afraid to hurt me. Don't come near me. Liam, you got this, I said, about to move closer, when he turned and rushed out of the cells, the darkness swirling around him. I'll be okay. His voice came through the link, and I frowned. It was clear he became extremely powerful when that darkness took over. How else was he able to mind link? That was dangerous. Zack murmured as Damon shook his head at me. And I was now standing here, arms crossed, watching as Damon and Zack questioned Owen, or should I say tried. Liam had been gone for about 20 minutes, I hoped he was okay. What did you do with the eyes? Zack asked coldly. There was only one set of teeth in the jar, and there were no eyeballs anywhere. Even when we had searched the entire bedroom, the thought that those might have been Mum's made me sick. I'm telling you it's not me. Owen roared, his eyes blazing with anger. Calm down, we'll ask the questions. Damon growled. Let's wait for Liam or Uncle L to ask him under Alpha Command, I said sighing. Something just felt off. What, enjoying this? Owen growled. No, now shut up. Things were found in your room, Owen, so obviously you will be questioned. No one's hurt you or Liam broke my nose. I was thrown in a cell. What more can they do? Keep it down. Damon growled, slamming his hands on the bar. Open the door, I'll put him in his place. Zack growled, his eyes blazing. You wankor. Owen swore, giving Zack the finger. I closed my eyes as Zack snatched the keys from Damon, opening the door. I knew what was going to happen before I even heard the sound of his fist meeting Owen's face. All right, Zack, back it up. We need him conscious for his questioning. Damon said. Owen was just a cockroach, the type you just can't get rid of. Bastards. You can stay here for the night. One of the alphas will question you soon. Damon said as Zack came out of the cell, wiping his hand on his jeans. I didn't say anything, clutching his nose. We exchanged looks as we walked away, he wasn't going to admit it. Asking him under Alpha Command was going to be the only way. He's so antagonizing. Damon growled, pinching the bridge of his nose. I smiled slightly. For you to get mad, it takes a lot. Yeah, he's AFPK. Zack growled, okay, maybe we should all just call it a night, although I want to be there when they question him. I said, sighing. It's late, but how about we grab some food and wait for Alpha or Liam? Zach suggested. Even though both Zach and Taylor were now fully clued in on the curse, I appreciated how they didn't make a big deal out of it, carrying on as normal. A true Delta couple. We nodded, walking back towards where the party had taken place not long ago. The Omegas were clearing up now, guards were still stationed around for everyone's safety. We grabbed some food, despite it being cold, and I piled extra onto mine in case Liam returned. The other two raised an eyebrow at my huge, overloaded plate, but I simply glared at them. That was enough to get them to stop looking at my food. We headed back towards headquarters, eating along the way. There they are, Damon said. I turned to see Liam walking alongside his father. He was in jeans, a t-shirt and a jacket. I frowned. Had he shifted or did he just dirty his clothes somehow? Even though he is on Wolfsbane, shifting shouldn't be possible, but he had mind linked and I couldn't put anything past this darkness. He looked at me and my heart skipped a beat, thinking he had fought through. I smiled slightly, holding the plate out to him. Hungry? Ah, now it makes sense why she got so much food. Damon teased lightly. I glanced at him and he smiled at me before looking away. It was going to take time for him to heal, and for me to stop feeling guilty, but at least now I knew I wasn't stringing him along. Actually, that looks about normal for Raven, Uncle L said with a smirk, making me frown. Hey! Uncle, that isn't fair. I need to eat to grow. It clearly didn't help, he replied. The two boys chuckled, whilst Liam simply smirked slightly. It was definitely payback for answering him back. I knew it. Thanks, Liam said, taking a burger from my plate. We headed inside, and the mood that settled over us dampened. The place was pretty quiet due to the time. I left my plate on the side as we walked towards the cells. You put him in the lower cells, hey? Uncle L said, raising an eyebrow. Personal issues? Not at all criminals go there, Zach said, making the rest of us smirk. Okay, we may have shoved him there because he was a killer. Right? I frowned. I don't know about that though. Something just felt off. Like we were missing something, but I don't know what it was. Shaking the feeling off, we walked to the cells. Open the door, Uncle L shouted. My heart skipped a beat as I tried to look past the four giants, my heart thudding to see Owen on the floor, but what was most worrying was the frothing foam that was coming out of his mouth as he convulsed on the floor. I stepped back in shock as Damon unlocked the door. Both Liam and Uncle L rushed inside to check his pulse. Call a doctor, Uncle L shouted, and I quickly mind-linked any doctors I could reach. What? He must have poisoned himself, Damon said, frowning. He knew it was over for him. Zach agreed. I still needed to hear it, Uncle L said as Liam frowned. Was he carrying poison on him? Check the cameras, Damon, to see if he took something, he said, standing up and assessing the situation. Damon nodded, rushing off to check, and I stepped aside as two doctors hurried in. My heart was thundering as I stared ahead. Owen poisoning himself? I don't know, it didn't seem like something he'd do. Owen had been taken to the hospital. Uncle L almost called Kiera, but the doctors said the poison had already affected his organs and some had stopped functioning entirely. We all knew Kiera's healing had limits too. If something was gone, she couldn't bring it back. She could only heal wounds, injuries, or diseases. The memory of her healing Al and him not waking up still made my stomach twist. It had been a horrible time for her. I shivered at the thought, my eyes widening when Liam placed his jacket around my shoulders, making my cheeks flush lightly. I remember him doing this when we were younger. I wasn't actually cold, but his scent and the warmth were welcoming. Liam, did you shift? I asked quietly. He frowned and nodded, shoving his hands into his pockets. I feel more in control in wolf form. That's good. So, even though you're on Wolfsbane, you can shift. Yeah, I told Dad about that. I may not be safe walking around. I wasn't asking because of that. You controlled it today. I'm proud of you. I said quietly. Yeah. He said, his eyes meeting mine. My heart thumped and I nodded as we stepped into the pack house. We could hear talking from the pack lounge, no doubt everyone was discussing what had happened. By now they probably knew Owen was missing and word had gotten out, it seemed. We walked up the stairs and Liam glanced around. I don't like you here alone, not with everything going on. He murmured. I paused, in the process of unlocking my door. Was I not the only one having doubts? He's caught though. I don't know, I don't feel at ease about it. He frowned. I smiled slightly, oh? Or is that just an excuse to stay? I said before I could stop myself. His eyes flashed, darkening with desire, my stomach knotted. I'm kidding. I said guiltily. Stupid raven, don't tease him. Do you want me to stay? He asked quietly. I froze, slipping the jacket off from around my shoulders, my heart thundering. I turned slowly, looking up at him. Follow your heart, not your mind. Yes. I whispered. He hesitated. Do you trust me? He asked, but I think the question was, did he trust himself? I do. I said quietly. I didn't need to say more, as he stepped inside and shut the door behind him. Be still. I told my heart. Suddenly, my room felt far too small. I feel like we're missing something too. I said, trying to lift the tension that had settled between us. Trying to ignore the ache between my legs and focus on reality. Me too. The pouch was too classy for Owen. Keeping teeth? Washing them and then placing them in a jar. He can't even put his dirty underwear in the wash. Liam said, as I heard him lock the door. Good point. I said, as I walked over to my dresser and began removing my jewelry. Liam walked over to me, my heart thundering as he reached up and began to remove my necklaces. His fingers brushed my neck, making my breath hitch. He slowly dropped the first necklace onto the dresser. And how elusive it's been up to now, for us to find evidence, then Owen being poisoned, but no one knew our plan. I whispered breathlessly before swallowing hard and clearing my throat. Goddess! There are ways we could have been heard. I don't know, I didn't know, but I told Dad I don't think it's Owen. He's too dumb. I smiled at that. Good point, so are you saying the killer's still out there? I think so, but until Owen wakes up, we won't know for sure. Dad will lift the curfew, but we are still going to investigate everyone. Liam said, placing the third necklace down before he started to remove the pins from my hair. I looked at him in the mirror, our eyes meeting as he ran his fingers through my hair, letting it down. He brushed it over one shoulder, leaving my mark uncovered as he looked down at it. I saw the flash of guilt in his eyes before he looked back up at me. I'm sorry. Sorry for this. He said, his fingers brushing over his mark, leaving a whisper of sparks in his wake. He was sorry, I could feel his guilt through the bond before he put his walls up. Taking hold of my shoulders, he turned me to face him. I can turn back time. But I promise, for as long as I live, I'll make it up to you. I wrapped my arms around his neck, my heart pounding as I allowed myself to embrace him. He hesitated before he wrapped his arms around me tightly. Our bodies molded together as one, my core throbbed. Although I knew I wasn't ready to go back to how we used to be right now, something told me our understanding and connection would be so much better this time around. Chapter 84. Liam. I wrapped my arms around her, my hands roaming her back. The feel of her skin through the thin lace of her top sent sparks running through me. She felt so good. I throbbed against her, biting back a growl of approval as she leant into me, her fingers grazing the back of my neck. I nuzzled my nose against her neck, her fresh floral scent clouding my senses as she sighed softly, her L.P.S. grazing my earlobe. My eyes flashed and the urge to kiss her grew stronger, but I couldn't. Liam. She moaned breathlessly, the tantalizing scent of her arousal seeping into the air. I'll change it. One day I'll make the memory less painful. Somehow. I wouldn't last long enough. The negative dark thoughts came to the forefront of my mind and the doubts grew as the darkness tried to push forward. Not this time. I kissed her harder, guilt racking me at what I had done. I had no right to. Hey, she pulled back suddenly, cupping my face as I looked away from her. I'm fine. I said, unable to look her in the eye. You're not, she said softly, reaching up she placed a soft kiss on the corner of my L.P.S. Our eyes met, before my gaze fell to her L.P.S. This pull. I was torn. Torn by the animalistic side that wanted to consume her completely, to devour her senseless, to the other side that felt guilt for what I had put her through. Just then, my phone rang. I was pulled from my thoughts as I slid it out of my pocket. It's Dad. You're meant to be under house arrest. She whispered, her gorgeous eyes widening as I answered the call. Yeah? You're meant to be home, Liam. Dad's voice came. Before I could reply, Raven took the phone from me. I asked him to stay, she said, her cheeks were burning and I swear it felt like we were kids or something. I guess it is my own fault. I heard Dad sigh. Raven, I understand your mates, but I can't risk him losing control. Just come stay here with him. We'll be okay. Uncle, trust me. Raven said, despite her blush deepening at Dad's unbothered tone as he invited her to stay. No Raven, rules are rules. Either you both get over here or Liam can come back, alone. I am not going to change my mind on that. Raven pouted. Okay, just for today. I'm so tired. She pleaded, and I raised an eyebrow. She didn't seem tired a few moments ago. I smirked at that, pulling her close. Goddess, I love her body. Raven. Dad growled. Uncle please. Pretty please, okay fine, first thing in the morning I want him back here. That's an order. Dad's voice was firm, but Raven being Raven, simply smiled and nodded, totally unfazed. She did know Dad couldn't see her nod, right? She hung up and frowned at me. You know, this is your fault. Yeah, I know. Her frown vanished and she looked at me apologetically. I didn't mean. I cut her off, placing a finger on her L.P.S. I know. I said, giving her a small smile. She looked up at me, wrapping her fingers around my wrist and kissing my fingertip. Let's get some rest. Now I feel like Uncle L's eyes are watching us. She grumbled. He isn't no angel. I know. I've heard the stories. She said, talking her heels off. I removed my own boots and got into bed. I wasn't going to take my shirt off, not wanting her to see my back. Although shifting seemed to have helped the healing, that or the darkness. I wasn't sure. I never thought she'd trust me to be anywhere alone around her anymore, not after what I had done, but she did. The mate bond calmed the growing storm inside of me, but I knew my time was running out. There wasn't much left until the blood moon, and with every passing day, I felt that darkness pushing to the surface, stronger and more powerful. One I would do my best not to let take over. It was hard because, although I was trying, it was consuming me completely. Earlier, when I wanted to rip Owen apart, I had felt my wolf stir and decided to shift. It did help, that in touching Raven now that I had strengthened the bond, but I didn't want to tell her that she helped because her tolerating me to this extent was enough. After what I did, she should have put a restraining order on me. I wasn't going to abuse that. Dad had wanted me to stay away from her, but I know he gets that we just can't stay away from one another. She was the very oxygen I needed. I didn't blame him though, not after I had hurt her and had put him through a lot, him and Mom. Even if it was the last thing I did, I would try to fix all this crap, or at least make it less painful for them all. She was snuggled into my arms now and had fallen asleep pretty fast. All night I didn't want to sleep, I actually wasn't able to when I had a hard-on from just looking at her. Even after what I did, she was still here in my arms, she was selfless. I hugged her tightly, I didn't deserve her, but I wanted her. I kissed the top of her head, the beat of her heart like music in my ears, her rhythmic breathing lulling me into a sense of security. My mind wanted to ponder on the killer, but I was far too sleepy. The last thing I remembered before I fell asleep was that I was sure the killer was still out there, somewhere. Ripples of pleasure flowed through me as I felt her run her finger through my hair. I didn't open my eyes for a while, enjoying her touch. My hold on her had loosened and I opened my eyes, looking straight that she hadn't changed last night. Noticing the stickers she had over her. Liam. Morning. I said quietly, my voice thick with sleep, doing my best not to pull her clothes and rip that tempting top off. Instead, I slowly let go of her, looking up into her eyes. She gave me a small smile, her gaze dipping to my L.P.S. My heart thudded when she slowly bent down, pressing her lips to mine. My mind went blank before reality hit me hard. Why did this feel too good to be true? I reached up, threading my fingers into her hair and pulling her closer, deepening the kiss. She seemed to have other plans though, her hand going down between us. Baby, are you okay? I asked. There was something different about her. Yet, I just want you, she said. I loved her confidence, but there was definitely something. A bang on the door made me sigh as Raven seemed to come to her senses. The scent of her arousal filled the room and she took a moment to look between us. She sighed, climbing off me. Guys. Alpha wants Liam back home. Now. Zach's voice came. Honestly, this is payback for all the times I walked in on Uncle L. Raven said, pouting. I sat up slowly, looking at her, her cheeks still a little flushed. What? She said, seeming to realize I was a bit thrown off. Nothing. I said with a small smirk. She blushed and pouted. Trust me, even I don't know what got into me. She said, yanking the door open. Zach and Taylor stood there smirking. She glared at Zach with her hands on her H.P.S., and I won't lie, she really did favor some over others, because she didn't seem to be giving her own friend any disdainful looks. Naughty Alpha! You're meant to be on house arrest, not getting dessert first thing in the morning. Taylor teased. And your naughty mate disturbed me. Raven countered. Oh babe, I think it's good we did, I don't want anyone taking advantage of you. Taylor said cheekily, giving her a hug. Wasn't she taking advantage of me? Zack raised an eyebrow before turning to me. Come on, Alpha was getting really stressed out. I stood up, pulling my shoes on before going over to Raven. I wrapped my arms around her from behind, placing a kiss on her neck. I'll see you later. I whispered in her ear, hearing her heart rate pick up. Okay. She said. After you. I said to Zack, knowing he had to escort me. I'll stay with Raven. Taylor said, planting a quick kiss on Zack's P.S. The last thing I heard before Raven shut the door was Taylor asking her if she was okay and that she looked a bit flushed, only for Raven to deny it vehemently. Your dad wants me to escort you back. Zack said, leading the way downstairs. I figured as much. We continued in silence. There was something I needed to do anyway. Speak to Mom. I still remember the pain I felt from her when I was chained up for my lashing, as she whispered to me that I was stronger than this, that I was better than this. That I was not a monster. Those words had struck home. I had broken something inside of her that was already not fully mended. It was as if she was reliving a memory whilst telling both of us that I was not Zidane. She had been through so much in life, yet she remained strong. To a point, I think people forget that she is human after all, and no matter how much time has passed, she has suffered a lot and that doesn't just go away. There are things in life that will always trigger trauma, and what I did, it was unforgivable. I had hurt the two women that I should always worship. My mother and my mate. Chapter 85. Scarlet. The smell of chocolate and brownies filled the air, mixed with Azura's shrieks of excitement. Sliding on an oven glove, I took the fresh tray of brownies from the oven. I felt calmer when I baked. Elijah was playing with Azura, tossing her up in the air and catching her with ease, looking as handsome as he did when I first fell for him. My king, my mate, my world. That wouldn't change, ever, but when you become a mother, the space in your heart grows. I have 3 beautiful children that I love more than life itself. I would die for them, and I would kill for them, but if they make a mistake, I would also be there to tell them that. The front door opened. I knew it was Liam from the way he shut the door. He was always quiet, as if he did not want to disturb anyone. Kiara was a little louder, but she was with Raven the majority of the time and that girl was loud. I smiled, remembering their giggles as they thought they were succeeding in stealing snacks from the kitchen. I shook my head. We had been young at one point and I knew all those tricks. Language baby. I mind-linked Elijah, knowing he often forgot his mouth around Azura. I was not happy with that. You were under house arrest, he said the moment Liam stepped into the kitchen. I know, he said. But I told you I don't think it's Owen, so I didn't really want to leave her alone. I know, but at least for the sake of rules, just stay here. If she wants, she can come here. Elijah said, frowning. Okay. Hey, pumpkin. Liam said, ruffling Azura's hair. We am. Daddy, catch me. That's great. Liam said before he looked at me, coming over, his gaze fell to the ground. Hey, Mom. He hugged me tightly and I wrapped my arms around his waist. Goddess, please don't hurt my son anymore. Can we talk when you're free? He asked quietly. I looked up at him as I moved back and nodded. Let me just cut these brownies. He nodded. I'll go take a quick shower. He left the kitchen and Elijah, who had just finished pouring a glass of milk for Azura, who was all ready to have some gooey hot brownies, came over to me, wrapping his arms around me. Strong sparks coursed through me, sending my stomach into a familiar frenzy, one I was so used to, yet at the same time, it still made me a jittery mess. Things will get better. He said huskily, I know. I replied. You're strong, kitten, but it's okay to not be okay at times. He murmured, nibbling at my neck. Bit back a sigh and nodded, trying to ignore the burning need that was settling into my core. I turned my head. He was right, I just needed to tell Liam how I felt too, even if it meant putting my fears out there. 20 minutes later, I had a plate of brownies, milk, and some toast on a tray. I took it to the back glass conservatory, waiting for Liam to come down and join me. He didn't take long. Now dressed in some grey jeans and a teal-colored t-shirt, he sat down next to me. Eat, I'm guessing you didn't get time for breakfast. I didn't get time for anything. He mumbled, picking up a slice of toast. I smiled slightly at that. My innocent Liam wasn't as innocent as I once thought. I watched him eat the toast as he stared out at the garden. The sun was shining, warming the room nicely, and a soft breeze was making the tree branches and grass sway. My smile faded away and I looked down at the tray. Is she ready? I know you won't push her, but I asked gently. Yeah, I'm not pushing her. He said quietly. I placed my hand on his leg. I know, I don't want her to feel emotionally guilty. I think she seems to know what she wants now and is stepping up to that. As much as I'm worried for her, I'm worried about you too. Talk to me, Liam. You're going through so much, this curse, the entire mate situation. It is what it is. Liam said, drinking some of the milk before picking up a square of brownie. It is, but there's always a reason for everything the moon goddess does. Grandma Amy knew that Mom, me and Indy were going to come to this pack. She had a dream but knew it was more. The fact that she left that note, maybe she foresaw that there is hope. Kiera told me that Alejandro was also given a choice when he was in a coma, that he met the moon goddess. The moon goddess loves us all, Liam. I believe, deep down, she isn't treating you as any less or that you are not enough. This curse. I believe she chose you to end this curse because she knew you were worth it, because you were the one most capable of doing so. This loophole, or something that she put against Helios' curse, I truly believe that she has faith in you because you are one of the kindest souls I know. You always put others before yourself. I said quietly. I believe that, I've been thinking long and hard. There has to be a reason, for this curse to choose Liam. There had to be a reason the moon goddess made him share a mate. I mean, why would she do that knowing it would cause him more conflict? There was more to this. I don't think I'm as kind as you think, Mom. I don't want to share her, I can't. I want her for myself. She's not just an object for us to share for sake. I don't get why this happened. Sure, people in polyamorous relationships exist, but it's not for me. I can't share her, and this is me saying this calmly, but I'm leaving it to her. I'm the selfish one here, if she wants us both, and I'm the one who can't accept it then. He shrugged and my stomach twisted. Liam, what are you? Nothing. He said smiling, as he now turned to me. I'm sorry, Mom, I know I brought back those painful memories. What I did. It's not something I forgive myself for. I hurt you and Raven, and I'm sorry for that. He took my hands, my heart squeezing at the sadness in his eyes. I don't deserve the love you give me, the love she gives me. Even if I got lashed daily for the rest of my life, it wouldn't be enough. Marking someone is sick, but I promise you, I won't become him. I won't hurt you anymore. I will try to be the son you can be proud of, not the one who causes you to cry endless tears. He said, softly cupping my face. I'm sorry for the pain I've caused you, for reopening those old wounds, but I swear on my life itself that I will not become Zidane, because I'm your son and I will never let you down. Tears stung in my eyes, I nodded. We love you, Liam, and we have faith in you. He wrapped his arms around me, rubbing my back gently as I cried silently. It did scare me. When I saw you covered in blood, I whispered, clutching his top. I saw him, T just brought everything back. I know, but I will not let myself become him. I promise you. I nodded as he rested his chin on top of my head, the resolution in his voice was so strong that I truly believed him. Chapter 86. Liam. It was later in the evening, and I had worked with Damon before returning home to Dad's place. I still needed to talk to him, and I would do it soon. I mind-linked Raven asking her if she wanted to come over, and she had sounded pretty flustered, although she had replied that she was obviously going to come and to leave the window open for her. Typical Raven. I was glad she was coming, because I needed it. Throughout the day I felt myself on the brink of losing control, and the amount of wolfsbane I had injected in myself was enough to kill. But I was fine. The moment that darkness grew, it was as if I was suddenly immune to it. I had just showered, I had just grabbed a towel when I felt the flare of darkness grow inside of me. Focus. There was nothing that triggered me, but the urge it had to release itself and wreak havoc made it hard to control. Let it all out and this struggle will stop. Don't fight it. I pushed the thoughts away, remembering what I had done the last time I had let it out. Raven. Think of Raven. I almost killed her. It wasn't working, I felt my anger flare, my claws coming out, and I plunged it into my CH3ST trying to contain this, digging my hand into my CH3ST, letting the pain override the darkness. I was not going to let it out. Focus, focus. Destroy it all. Let it go. IGR0ANED, falling to my knees, I needed to shift. I needed Liam. The door flew open and Raven's scent filled my senses as she fell to her knees next to me, her hand going to my shoulder. Liam, breath. I growled lowly. Baby, move. Her hand wrapped around my wrist, firmly removing my claws from my CH3ST. I'm not leaving you, Liam. Her voice was firm yet soft, and her touch seemed to fight the storm growing inside of me. Can I hold you? I whispered, finally looking up at her as I fought against it. Forever. She replied, wrapping her arms around my neck. I pulled her close, sitting back against the counter, wrapping my arms around her tiny body tightly, feeling the darkness fading away. Her lips never left my neck or shoulder, until I was finally myself. She slowly pulled away, staring at my chest. Pain flashed in her eyes as she touched the raven tattoo that was over my heart. Don't hurt yourself, baby. She whispered, cupping my face as she knelt between my legs. I was trying to pull it back. I'm okay, I said, running my hand through her hair. I'm proud of you, she whispered, cupping my face. Our eyes met, and I saw the concern and pain in her eyes. I'm losing it, Raven, I said quietly. A part of me was telling me not to burden her with my fears, but another part of me needed to share the fear inside of me, and with who else but my mate? "I've hurt you, Mom, Dad. Damon, I don't recognize the person I've become anymore," I said, running my fingers through my wet locks. "And I hated it." She tugged my face up, staring into my eyes, and shook her head. "You have got this, Liam. You want to fight this? Just think, a month ago you were like, whatever, I don't care if I die," she said, softly. "You are going to get through this, and you will be the very best version of yourself, because we are all rooting for that." "I hope so. We all love you, Liam." "I don't really deserve it though, the amount of crap I've done." "Love doesn't work that way. We love you for you, and that won't change," she said firmly, blushing as she looked me over, clearly realizing only now that I was only in a towel. She moved back, her heart thudding as she grabbed another towel, busying herself with wetting it before dabbing my CH3ST gently and wiping up the blood as my wounds started to heal. "Let's get to bed," she whispered. "Sure. I'll just wash my hands," I said, standing up and tightening my towel. I smirked. "Want a peek?" I asked. Her eyes widened, and she shook her head vigorously, rushing from the room. I smirked as I quickly rinsed my hands off. Entering the bedroom, I saw her sitting on the bed, one hand on her HP, and she looked like she was in pain. "Are you okay, love?" I asked, worry filling me as I rushed over to her. She nodded, despite her heart beating faster than normal, and it wasn't because of me. "Yeah, I just felt a bit unwell." She shook her head, and I nodded, hoping she was okay. I went over to my wardrobe thinking I needed to do something. Perhaps I needed to visit Rehan and Dulsanra. Maybe she could put some sort of seal on my abilities. The following day, I had told Dad I had somewhere to go. Only Raven knew where I was going, and although she wanted to go with me, I didn't trust her being alone with me, not with my unhinged behavior. At least at home, I know that there are others not far off. She hadn't been happy when I said that and huffed in annoyance before she headed out to training. I had called Rehan and we had scheduled a place to meet closer to his pack but not in pack territory because I didn't want anyone to know we had met or that I had gone there. "Take care of yourself," Dad said as he stood by the car. "I'll be okay," I said, crouching down and ruffling the little pumpkin's hair. "Be a good girl, okay, and no picking your boogers, it's gross." "I no do that anymore, I big girl." She denied it, as if that was obvious. "Yeah, I saw her this morning." She smiled, and I smiled back. Placing a quick kiss on her forehead, I got into my black Range Rover, waving them goodbye and slipping on my shades. I knew Dad was worried about me going alone, but I promised him I would be okay, and I wouldn't be far. I just hoped I was and that Dulsanra could help. I put some music on as I drove out of the pack grounds. It was a good hour later when I thought I heard a thud from the back. Did something fall onto my car? I pulled up on the side, putting my hazard lights on, and got out. Walking around, I inspected the smooth metal, shaking my head. Strange, I had felt something hit. I was about to get back into the car when I froze in my tracks, staring at the trunk. A sudden thought came to me, and I frowned. "Don't tell me." Stepping back, I popped the lid open and raised eyebrow, staring down at none other than Raven, curled up inside. She smiled sheepishly at me. "You said I couldn't come, but I want to meet Rehan's kitty," she said, pouting as she sat up, swinging her legs out as she stared up at me with those gorgeous eyes that really made me unable to refuse her. How they? I didn't even smell you. I still couldn't. She smiled proudly, then raised an eyebrow, as if that was obvious. Anti-scent spray, smart guy. She jumped down, a jacket and pants completing her look. As always. So, for the last hour, you were in there. No, I think it's almost 3. She sighed. My eyes widened in surprise as I slammed the trunk shut. 3? Seriously? Yeah, I needed to get in there before you saw me. She pouted. I pulled her close, unable to resist her charm. I can't believe I actually thought she'd listen when I told her no. You know, it's dangerous around me. I said quietly as she wrapped her arms around my waist. I also know it's dangerous for you alone, and your dad doesn't know you're going this far out, does he? Yeah, he doesn't, or he would have definitely sent guards, but I have some wolfsbane, not that it works. He said. Reckless move, blue eyes. She said, before sliding away swiftly and getting into the car from my side. This girl. I got in to see her strapping herself in as if she was ready for a special trip or something. But could I deny that I enjoyed having her here? No. I leant over, kissing her cheek softly before moving back. So, you've met Rayhan's kitty before. What was she like? She asked when we were back on the road. Loud. Oh. And what else? Short. Oh. Wait, shorter than me. No, I don't think anyone can be shorter than you. I smirked. Her mouth fell open before she frowned. Major burn, dude. Sorry, but I like your size. You are perfect. I said, looking her over. Her cheeks flushed, but she still gave me a narrowed-eyed look. You are not forgiven. I know. I said, thinking about all the things I really wasn't forgiven for. She placed her hand over mine, giving me a small soft smile. I wanted to tell you ouch. She flinched and I almost panicked until she rested her head back, closing her eyes and motioned to me. She was fine. Sorry, I just feel really. I'm okay. That's happened twice. Are you sure you're okay? Maybe we need to get that checked out. I'm seriously okay. She said, and I nodded, although I didn't believe her fully. Was it? Could it be heat? My stomach twisted and I really hoped not because I didn't want her to go through that. Raven, we had just reached the hotel suite where Rayhan had told us to meet him. This was one of the Rossi hotels. Dude, these guys were loaded. I wonder how rich they were. Remind me to check the Rossi Group of Enterprises net worth later. There they were, Rayhan as handsome as ever, and next to him, a woman who was as gorgeous as a winter queen. In person, her white hair looked even whiter, and her startling blue eyes were so blue. She was slender yet she had curves that were in perfect proportion, no extra wide hips like me or anything. Hey! I said as the two men hugged, before Liam gave Dulsanra a nod. Hi, it's nice to meet you, Raven. Dulsanra said with a small smile. Likewise. I said, she was taller than me. Maybe about 3 inches. When you're my height, even an inch is vital. Long time no see, Raven. Rayhan said, and I didn't miss his gaze going to my neck, but it was only a second and I had a feeling he knew what had happened. She hitchhiked. Liam said, looking down at me. It's a big trunk, I said. I'm glad I got to meet you. Dulsanra said. In person, you're even tinier, like a little pear drop. Pear drop? Yeah, like the sweets. She said, smiling slightly. She has a thing for naming people after food. Rayhan said, pulling her close as he planted a kiss on her P.S. I smiled at that. Well, shall we get to this? Liam asked, the mood instantly darkening. I don't know if it's going to work, we're talking gods. Dulsanra said, running her fingers through her hair. If I didn't know that Selene existed, I'd find this entire god thing pretty weird. Rayhan remarked as he sat on the sofa watching as Dulsanra got to work, drawing some symbols onto the ground. I know, let's just try to see if we can suppress it, even if it's only partially. Wolfsbane isn't working on me, neither is Silver. I took 4 doses of Wolfsbane this morning and nothing, I feel normal and I can mind link. Liam said, his eyes on the symbols on the ground. There are a few things I checked up. Dulsanra said. I'll do a suppression spell, and the other is to target you. What do you mean? I asked. She looked hesitant, glancing at Rayhan before staring down at her symbols on the floor. I can block your healing. But that's risky. If anything happens, you'll be like a human, it's do it, we do both. If the darkness isn't controllable, then we target the real me. If I do lose control, someone can easily injure me and stop me from going out of control. Let's do it. Liam said with a nod. Liam, think about it. This could go really wrong. Rayhan said, brushing his hair back as he frowned thoughtfully. I'm a risk, Ray, to everyone around me. No. Liam, imagine if someone attacks you, and I can still fight. He said, cupping my face. I looked up at him, not liking this at all. I didn't only hurt you, I attacked Damon, Dad, and even hurt Mom. He said quietly. I'm dangerous, and I need to do something about it. I nodded, I didn't like this, but I understood what he meant. I pressed my P.S. together, nodding, and stepped away. Dulsanra looked at me apologetically before turning to Liam. Step into the center of the circle. She said. My heart felt uneasy at this, but I couldn't do anything but watch Liam make this decision. Or if you want to pay for more such audiobooks, you can send us a request in a private Facebook group, or join us on WhatsApp. A link is given in the video description. The rest of the audiobooks will be uploaded in the next episode. Join us on Patreon to listen to more unlimited audiobooks.